All right. Well, I'm here to talk to you about your TPS reports. The crowd goes, wow, that's funny. All right, so to this very diverse group, I'm so glad we had such the turnout that we did. This is about Kentico8, and it's a complete redesign of the entire platform. It's the largest release in Kentico's history. I believe there are over 1 million lines of code now in the new version of Kentico. And I believe it took them 18 months. And this is to show you what that interface looks like and to show you some of the really cool things that will help you in your Kentico development projects. So, what is Kentico CMS? Won't spend a lot of time on that slide. What are some of the top features? Won't spend a lot of time on that slide. What's new in version 8? Yes, top developer improvements in my opinion. I'm going to look at 2 of them in a little bit more detail, data query and test automation, and how you can learn more. So, what did I say? So, I don't know how many people know, this was founded in 2003 by a guy who's younger than me, and he makes millions of dollars.
So you
Who?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
the best.
All right. No one's ever going to put me down.
It's the company stock, man.
That's it. Yet another quote that no one gets. So
I get it.
No, it's saying it. You got to sing it. So, anyway, there's a guy named Peter Palace who invented Kentico in his dorm room when he was in school. And I've seen version 1.9. It's quite interesting. But they've been around. The first version I ever used was version 3.0, and it's come a long way. They have over 15,000 sites. That number's kind of hard for Tom to get. Tom Robbins is the chief evangelist of Kentico, because a lot of people install the free version and they can only track it so much. But he knows it's over 15,000 in 87 countries, and that 24/7 support, and it has a whole bunch of features built into it. And these are some of the big name clients that use it. So. What are some of the top features? It is a .NET application that runs on SQL Server. Currently, it's a .NET application that runs on SQL Server. They have over 25 built-in modules. Built-in support for authorized.NET PayPal, WebDAV support. Does anybody not know what WebDAV is?
Cole, go ahead.
Okay, WebDAV is the ability to edit Word and Excel documents right from the browser and then be able to copy them back in a physical file.
I know what that is.
Kind of in that realm. They're very much a partner-driven company. They have a lot of focus groups and user forums, and they have something called the user voice where people can put in their own enhancements or request their own enhancements, and they really reach out. This version in particular, Kentico has taken a completely different mindset with their development, in which it's completely driven off of customer feedback. I've worked with Kentico for 5 years, and it wasn't until this version that I was aware they had dedicated UI people, dedicated UX people that their only job is to design Kentico, figure out what people like, what colors they like, how does it make them feel. They had mood graphs or something, Steve? Mood something? Mood boards, yeah, they had like mood boards, and at the Kentico Connections, they had several displays set up. And Mike, you also looked at at the connection, did you see you went and saw the stuff they had set up, right? The UI team?
Steve talked with them quite a bit, though.
Did you? So, I mean, as you can attest, they put a lot of effort into this new design. There's multiple development modules. Portal is obviously the one we use most extensively. ASPX is the one we used to use most extensively. It does support MVC a little bit more than it did, which I can get into that a little bit if we have time. And hybrid solutions, something like, what's that?
Hybrid or hybrid?
Maybe a little bit of both. Depends on whoever goes and listens to this recording. You can actually blend Portal and ASPX together. You can blend ASPX and MVC together, or any combination of those. So what's new in version 8? A complete rewrite and redesign of the UI. The entire administration interface is completely different. And I'll demonstrate that. They have several e-commerce improvements. A lot of these things we've done in the past had to build from scratch. Things like product variants, customizable checkout, meaning The way things are laid out in Kentico, they're kind of a template form in which you have this HTML interface where you can go in and set how things look. But in the past, the shopping cart was just a control. If you want to change how it looked, you're physically changing code files. Now it's all based on these transformations, so you can do it all right through the website if you want to move the quantity box to the left or something like that. You can move it all around quite easily.
XSLT?
Yep. They have, actually you can do transformations in XSLT, ASCX. I think there's another way. We normally only do ASCX, but you can do XSLT if you want to. I've never seen anybody do that. Like, I don't even know how you would do it. But I know it's in there because it's an option. But I've never actually seen it in production or anybody actually doing it.
How was that?
There's a brand new way to do module development. Now, this one's kind of interesting, and I'll demonstrate some of this. I thought this was going to be a complete way to do models completely different. And you would do this completely different way all the time, but it's not really the case. It's a new way to do modules. You can still do it the old way as well, and I'll kind of demonstrate that. You can do more authentication methods, meaning there's now, they have form-based authentication, which is something they've always had. They have things like single sign-on. They have claims-based authentication, which if you're familiar with that, basically you go to a website, you enter your credentials, the credentials get passed to this system, which creates a token, then passes that token back to you, and then every subsequent request you make uses that token, so that's how every request is being authenticated, based off of this token. And every time you pass it, it authenticates to make sure your token is valid, as opposed to something maybe being created in session and checking your stuff on every request like that. What that does is it really kind of removes session in some ways because you don't have to do that kind of stuff because the token always contains your information when you pass it. I don't know if it's OAuth or not. I have to read up on it a little bit more. I know they also built in Windows Identity Foundation framework capability, and I think that has something to do with it.
So maybe Web.
What's that?
Windows Identity.
Yeah, they can do that. I don't know if it is OAuth or not, but they've talked. I've seen some stuff about it. I have to look a little bit more.
If you ever try to work with the Yahoo Fantasy Sports API, it's OAuth, and it is a friggin' pain in the ass to work with.
So,
sorry.
Children.
Okay. There's a number of security improvements. They made it a lot more fortified, and they gave it some more capabilities of what you can protect yourself against from people hacking in and flood attacks and various things like that. And there's a lot of online marketing improvements. One from a usability standpoint, if you can track more things and you can get much more granular look at stuff. But then also on the back end, how it processes things, you have a lot more visibility as to what the system's actually doing. So, I'm going to talk about this, and then I'll show you some stuff what it looks like. The top developer features, in my opinion, there's been a ton of API improvements. They've streamlined some stuff. They've reconfigured the way some things happen that just makes it a lot easier. There is a new way to do a module, which I'll show you. The simplified UI, which actually just makes it easier. There's a smaller project size. Less project size means quicker build times because it takes less to package it. There's a number of e-commerce stuff, and again, it's a lot of things that we built in the previous projects. Discount codes and what are some of the other ones that we have?
There's a lot of stuff around.
What's
I
that?
think that they have a loyalty program. I don't believe so, but there's a lot of stuff around discounts where you can base it basically on macros. So.
Yeah, you can. So you can basically be like, you put this in your cart and you looked at these three pages beforehand, so now we can offer you a discount on that particular cart, on that particular item, and all kinds of stuff like that. And then there's another thing called Strands. Strands is, I don't know if it's a DLL or some third-party system that it's basically when you go to a site and you look at a product, and maybe you put it in the cart, and below it it's like, you may also like these items. That's based off of logic that Strands provides. So that's built into it now.
So it didn't have that before?
No.
Gosh, I've been telling people it does.
There's a lot of e-commerce stuff. The ability to copy and paste web parts, which I'll show you that as you're designing and laying out your pages, you can actually just say copy, paste it in a completely different page template, which makes life a lot easier instead of having it. Yeah, it's really awesome. There's a new CK editor, which is the built-in HTML editor. Data query and test automation, I'll get to that. There's a new UI-based form builder, which is really good for building up online forms that you want people to do. There's built-in CSS preprocessor. I know they support less. I think there's another one that they support, but I don't know that for sure. This is a really big one for developers in that it has the latest Azure SDK support, because in every previous version we've always had to limit it because basically the Azure SDK from 2.0, from 1.8 to 2.0 had breaking changes in the way it just did whatever, all the stuff that it does. So Kentico was never able to support anything higher than version 1.8 in its architecture. Now it does, which is a big deal because if you have a new developer starting up, they go, oh, you need the Azure SDK, they'll go get the latest version, which is version 2.2, and no, that doesn't work. You have to go find the specific version that they need to use. And then the Windows Identity Foundation support, again, that goes with the authentication, if you don't do that. It actually, the way Smart Search indexing works is it crawls through your content and it creates small little index files, and then it actually searches against that. And it does that a lot better now. It just processes it a little bit better, but more importantly, it tells you what it's doing at that particular moment in time. So if you see a particular file is causing a problem, you'll be able to know it. And the customizable shopping cart, which is, I'll show you that. So I'm going to jump over, but before I want to do that, I want to scare Mike and everybody a little bit. So I'm going to show you as far back as what we have. What? Yeah, I have it delivered at 7, yeah. Duffy, here.
Did you go to order pizza?
Yeah.
It's already on its way.
Already installed.
It's already coming at 7. That's what Mallory came back for.
All right. This was one of the oldest sites that we had up. And this is what version...
No.
No, Terry.
So,
I can ask you.
No, we wouldn't know.
It's really it's about the search, and it's more that,
You didn't go back far enough. You couldn't get IMG's website.
it's okay. What about search?
does it also support Windows documents and indexing the content other than web content?
Do you mean like probably through PDFs and stuff?
I'll take it if you don't want it.
Now, I know if you use the standard SQL search, the standard search inside of Kentico, it's not really seen.net based, you can do full text indexing search against your database, and you can do PDF search. I believe that there is some improvement, so that yes, it doesn't have to be in the database, and you can still get those improvements, but I have to look at it.
So the answer is yes, it works because it uses SQL full text-based search. But the answer is no, it does not work in Azure because SQL databases in Azure do not support full text search.
Full text index search.
I had to
So-
tell students that.
You get more.
I had to tell students that they're a little disappointed, but
So, this is version 5.5 R2. Came out in 2010, somewhere around there. This is what we have some very unfortunate clients that actually still see this stuff. This is what it looks like.
until about a month ago.
From there, they upgraded the UI to in version 6, which matches version 7. And I haven't hit the site in a while, so I should probably vamp for a little bit until it's time to come up. They changed the look of it, they streamlined it a little bit, but it's still basically the same structure. Frames based, there's some top navigation, but most of your content tree and stuff eventually will load here on the left in a moment. But most importantly, you have these two distinct areas, the CMS desk, which is used to manage content for the websites, and then you have what's called the CMS Site Manager, which is really the administration interface for someone that's developing and configuring the site. For content, the CMS desk, that's where all the content is managed. There's a visual representation of the content tree, they can go to my desk, they can add pages, this is where you can design them, look at separate properties and what have you. But there's really these two distinct areas. So what we've done and have to do in the past is we give our clients, full access in here so that they can edit whatever content they want on their website. But we don't necessarily give them access to the site manager because this is where you can really jack up everything, like delete the entire site and stuff like that. And whereas the CMS desk is very customizable in that you can define who has access to this tab and this tab and this tab, and when you're in here, what do you have access to do? The site manager is the other. There is nothing. You either get into it or you don't. So it's been something we've had to deal with for years of this kind of these two different areas and this distinction that we kind of always had to set up and maintain. And if a client ever gets access to it, they're like, okay, well, we can't be held responsible if you delete all your stuff at this point because you have access to do that. So 6 and 7 basically look the same, which brings us to version 8. The corporate site, this is just the demo site that Kentico provides that shows you normal stuff. But this is the new administration interface. And I haven't hit it. I probably should hit it. The corporate site is a really good thing too because it's a visual representation of most of the out-of-the-box functionality that Kentico has. And actually, I'll just show you. So you can do products and you can do shopping cart and communities and forums and news articles. But the best part about it is down here at the bottom, you can actually see examples of most of the web parts that are inside of Kentico and how they actually look and feel. So if you ever wanted to implement, there's like a Bing Maps or something.
Question.
Yes, sorry, missed that.
Can I get access to a site like that doesn't expire?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can reset it back to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would like that.
Okay. Yes.
Ditto.
Yes. So if you wanted to see here, actually I have to get down in here. Basic Bing Maps. It's going to throw a big error because I don't have a developer account configured inside of there. But if you want to see what this particular web part looks like, you can come in here and see it. So the corporate site's really good for that. And I'll end up kind of modifying a few things here in a second. But from an administration side, ooh, they took away the background. Ooh. Are you ready? Are you ready? Should I go back to the previous one? Should I go back to the previous one? I'll just move on in.
Well, there's no password?
Not on my local machine. This one looks like that.
Wow.
So what they've done is they've changed the UI. There's one single one called admin, and they went with this dashboard approach in which they create, these are what are called applications. That's what Kentico refers to them as. They're applications, different functionality. We kind of would normally refer to them as modules. They kind of call them applications because they're modules as well. You can make your own modules.
Isn't the basis behind that that they want to allow other people to develop applications?
That is correct. So you can develop your own stuff. They want to have kind of like a marketplace kind of idea so that you can probably sell your stuff and plug it into here. But most importantly, what they want to do is they want to start changing this so that this home screen, if you are, I'm an administrator, I see everything. But if you're a content editor, then maybe you would only see that and that and that and that and forms and pages. And like you can start customizing it based on role. So you put someone in a role, when they log in, they're going to see this particular interface. Wherever they could, they almost have all navigation is on the left, and it's not using frames. And it's all the same stuff, but it's very modular, and it's very simplified into what it is you're looking at. So it does. It actually reminds me of Windows 8 and Windows Azure Management Portal combined into one. That's what I get the feeling it is. They put a lot of effort. This is what they did a lot of feedback with to try to figure out what this needs to look like, how it needs to feel, even the colors that are being used. They did a lot of research into that. I still don't know where some things are, so I can always come into here and you type and you can just bring those up really quickly. So, again, they kind of focus it onto role as to what it is that you're doing, if you're obviously managing content, if you're managing e-commerce or what have you. So in here you still have your pages, so there's still the concept of a content tree in which you can go in and create new pages and develop, whatever it is you want it to do. We'll see what happens when it wakes up. How many people have used this so far? 1, 2, okay. Mike, 3, there we go. So we still have the concept of here.
I thought you could configure the dashboard too.
You can.
How? I can't do it.
You meaning with what?
If you're global admin, does it just show you everything even if you don't want to see everything?
I think it does.
Okay.
I think you configure it under, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I can't really remember. So let me go back to content tree. So this is all pretty much still the same. There are some cool things I want to show you though. This is pretty slick. So let me just go to the news page. So let's see how this is configured. We're going to like totally jack up my site and see if I can break it. One of the coolest things I really like is the new HTML editor is a lot cleaner and it's a lot easier to figure out what things are. Here they had some really confusing icons in some way, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but they tried to simplify it a little bit, and it has a lot of functionality in here that it didn't necessarily. It's just kind of, it's cleaned up a lot better. This is a third-party utility that they integrated in called CK Editor, and this is just the latest version of it. Yes, Steve?
When you create a new paragraph, does it jam a bunch of break tags in there? Or does it actually create a new paragraph?
Where's the paragraph? Is it?
Is it adjourned instead of having to be?
Yeah. Just
Are you talking about that?
Yeah, and then switch to source. It is a new paragraph. Oh no, it's not.
No.
Actually, it didn't do anything. Let me try this.
Yeah, the break right there.
Maybe you can hit enter twice.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Do you want it to do that?
So disappointing.
You know, it just makes it one paragraph with breaks in it. You could have created a table.
It's not really.
To be honest, when you're doing development, it's very hard to decipher when you want a paragraph and when you want a break.
I would rather.
Like for a build CK editor. Because they would have to read the text and understand the
WordPress.
context.
How about this? Show blocks. How about that, Steve? Do you like that? Steve, do you like this?
What is that? Everybody knows how to do that.
I still see. break.
That's just get ready. Take it easy, pal. Holy cow.
What would be the logic for that though? You're saying it's double entry equals a paragraph.
So watch this. So how about this? Look, you can see this, Steve. You ready?
That no business owner in the world knows what the hell a paragraph tag is.
Steve?
They use them, and if you want to style it, it's amazing.
Steve?
We are separated.
Not breaks in paragraph.
Do you like that? Does that help you a little bit?
It's better, but yeah, I didn't know.
It lays out the blocks so you know what it is you're dealing with.
Oh, that's cool.
That helps a little bit.
Yeah, it's better. That's good.
Anyway, so good. I made Steve happy. So it has this new UI in here. So this is a pretty cool feature. There's actually something up here in the top right too that I forgot to show you, but I'll have to come back to that because now it's loading it. I find that the copy-paste web parts is really cool because that could be a real pain if you need to copy some functionality from one page to another. So I'll just grab this news repeater, copy, and I'm going to go to the home.
You have no idea how much time this
What?
takes.
Really?
Ask Tyler right now how much time this would take him.
All right, everybody go.
I don't know what it's going to do. It depends on what the settings are, but I'll be able to fix it. So. Let's see. I don't know where I put it. It's probably because it wasn't configured.
If you copy your desktop again.
It's probably because it's not configured to pull the news. It's probably relative to the path it was at, so it's probably that was probably not a good one. So let me take that one away. I'll do a different one that will make you happier.
What does the move to do? Can you move it to a different page?
You move it to a different web part zone on the same page.
Okay, like, that's still the same.
Yeah. They also added this. This is new from the last preview, the loading indicator. It's really good. It helps you figure out what the heck it's doing. So let me grab this instead because this will be easier because it doesn't. I'm sure this news had a relative path set and it wasn't finding any news on the other page, so that's why it wasn't showing it up. But if I come into here, come on, load up, and I paste it into there, and now. Should see my news in here somewhere. Maybe not. I'm a liar.
Stop lying.
I must be lying. It's right there. I wonder why I didn't copy that. Probably because, oh, I did a bad thing again. I'm not crazy. I'm just going to change it. So just to show you that I know what I'm doing. I'm going to make this know that it's under the news area. Because right now I'm sure it's just relative. Yeah, it's just doing that. So we'll just do. Come on then, load up.
Hey, look, it's 30.
But yeah, this is a pretty, I don't remember how I did this the very first time, but it was a lot better representation than what I'm trying to do right now, because it just worked and it was really cool. But it's a really good feature because, again, the only other way we'd had to do that before is really open up two browsers or open up this one and do like a screenshot of all the properties and then go into this one and try to match all the screenshots up, and that's just a pain. So see if I can just manually do this. All right. So now, oh, see, I like broke it now. I really broke it because now I broke that up. So it does do it, I promise. It is. There was pre. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see. All right. So there's my news repeater. Now that I have it there, I'm going to see if I can get it to work on the homepage now. There's the news. Now it's showing up. I just had to get the thing I was copying. I had to make it correct. There's the news. So I didn't have to do anything. I could just copy all the properties over. The problem was the thing I was copying was relative, and I had to make it absolute because now this is not under the news page. I wasn't finding the news article. I had to tell it, go look under the news area before it was done.
So that means that everybody has to change to, if you don't use that property, you have to change
No.
their mindset on using absolutely.
That was in this particular example, that particular repeater. It said go get all the news articles underneath yourself. But I moved the control for something that didn't have any news articles under it. So I had to go tell it, go get the news articles over there. And then I copied it, so when I put it in here, it still knows where to go get them. But this could be it could be a JavaScript file, it could be a repeater like I use, it could be a number of things that we can copy over, but it saves a ton of time for design, that's for sure.
It's a step forward, but it's not the end solution. Is there any ability yet to do inverted web powers? Because basically, if you're setting up 10 different templates and you create one web power, you can copy it to all 10, but the second you have to change them, you still have to change all 10.
So with the template itself, there is the possibility of inheritance, in which if you structure things the right way, you can choose which pages. This isn't a good example. Let me get down in here some so I can get something that has a page in it. So if you get down deep enough, you can actually choose inherit what's in the root, but not what's in partners. And then if your web part was in the root and not that page, then you actually would inherit whatever that web part is. So if it was like editable text, you would see that editable text on your page. It just depends on how you have your sites configured to do that. That's not new to version 8. That's been in there since version 3.
A common sidebar across the
You have to put that in the master page.
You can do that with, you can have two content placeholder web parts, and then on one of them you set the default page template to another page template that has all your global web parts in it, and then you just put that on another page when you do it. That's what we do for social sharing junk and yeah. That's been around for a while, but it's not something that they actually, there's some random blog article that talks about it. It's apparently unsupported.
Let me show you the customizable shopping cart. All right, that's not what it is. Oh, that's right. The customizable shopping cart's not in the corporate site. It's in the other site. I can try to set that up. I'll show you that another time. But let's see. So other things that it does. So the new custom module creation. So what I thought this was originally was a new way to do all modules. And if you go through, let's see, if you go through like the example that Kentico has for you, they'll have you make this company overview. And the idea is, let's say this is what you need. You have some sort of data, and in this case, it's offices for your company. You can quickly make a module that allows someone to see a grid view of this data and be able to edit them and manipulate them, all within a controlled Kentico environment with ever writing one bit of code. So You do it first by making the base module itself, and then you make an underlying class that is the office. The office is like the underlying data table, and when you define it this way, you pick the fields that each office would have, which momentarily, they'll be like office name. Go away. You have like an office name, a display name, and the address, and some width, and the last modified, and these just dictate how someone would interact with it. So after you do that, you create this underlying database table that would hold this information. Then you can actually come into Kentico and you can generate code on the fly that allows you to interact with your table. So now you have what's called an info and an info provider. So this is like how you actually interact with the underlying data. This is the methods in which you would do that. So you have like insert office. You'll see over here in a second. Let me find one. So there's like get office info that would return the information from your underlying data. You would have set office info, delete office info. These are all the functions that Kentico will use behind the scenes to interact with your data. So when you do all that, then you register it inside of your content tree, and basically you get into something that, I took away like the thing I needed to see, because I don't know how to get to that area. I have to search for it. Oh, it's in here, that's right. So you get into here, and now you have this underlying data, and you can edit these, and so it's kind of real similar to the custom table, but you can actually override what happens because it physically makes these code files, and then you could say every time an office gets created, then go do something else, do stuff like that, but then this gives them a utility to do that. So this new module creation really seems to be focused at this kind of thing. Like if you had some data that you wanted to interact with, wrap permissions around it so that some people can get it to and some people can't, and then they can come here and edit it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not exactly what I thought it was. But with that, you can do some things like this, so that when I come in and I insert a new office, doesn't matter. So I insert that new office. I actually have code in here. Oops. Stand by. I'll wait till that comes up. So I have custom code that I put in the system so that every time I insert a new office, I write an event into the event log. So I could see how maybe you would use that to do some of this stuff. Open up. Please open up.
Pop-up block.
Is it? Pop-up block. Yeah. Now this is another kind of cool thing. This is my guess. What I think they're doing is, this is like, it's almost like a session. So whatever screen that you're in, if you refresh it, knows that you're in that screen, no matter where you are. If you've noticed, my thing's not changing, it's just changing what's displayed. I think that's cool. So
That is cool.
thank you. So this is an event that happens every time I get new office was created. So behind the scenes, when you make this new module, it creates some code. Try not to be too technical, but this is that info provider. This is what you actually saw in the portal. It physically made the code file back here, and then this is that where it has like get office or whatever, like get offices and get office info. It's calling these when it loads all those up. But then you can also do something like this, which overrides. So I have every time after an office is inserted, then I'm calling this custom code to then insert an event log provider. And I thought, okay, I guess I could see some benefit in that. It's kind of cool, depending on really what your custom module is. But when I think of custom module, I think it's something that's completely unrelated to anything, and it's just some crazy thing we need to do. So I went through and I made another custom module, kind of what I would call the legacy way that we used to do it, or I wouldn't even call it legacy, it's just the way I think you would do it. And I was happy to see that you can still do that, in which I just have my own ASPX page that has a very awesome button, and that button tells me the time. It has really nothing to do with Kentico, but I can still do it the same way, in which I wrap it in Kentico security. So, and in doing so, I built it the same way that I did in the past, in that, actually that's not in there, it's under, I think I put the code in here. You can define where that code file goes and everything, and then it's just your normal code that you would have for a module. So, and a page that goes behind it. So, not that exciting, but I was glad to know that the other way is still completely supported. Now, let's see what else is inside of there. Yes, Alex.
I'm sorry, so when you say the old way, does that mean that you were creating this module from within Visual Studio? And
Yes.
it was published to that? Okay.
Yes.
But now there's a way to, so you weren't able to develop a module within Kentico before?
No. And really, the new module creation automates the creation of some of your code for you. If you just needed to manage data like I did, I could do that through the website. It makes a new file. I just have to recompile the website, and then it just works. I would never have to go touch it. If I just wanted to go manage these office records like that, I would never have to physically open Visual Studio. Actually, in this case, I wouldn't even have to recompile because it's a website. It would just be a part of it. So I would never have to do anything. But typically, we will pre-package functionality that is something a lot more complex than just managing some little bit of data. It will be, a full-on utility to go interact with some third-party system. We would still do those the same way that we do them. And that's really what the point is. So really what they did is you have the existing way that modules were created. They added this other capability if you need to do this particular kind of functionality, which I'm sure I'm not looking at that to the full extent of its capability. That's just what I see it as right now.
I was wondering if it's something that for real developers, if it's easier for them to put something in there that they could.
I will show you some stuff that non-developers can do. So let's go with the form on our website. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to make a new, let's make a new form. And we'll call it Alex's form.
Yay! I know.
And now, in the past, this was something in which basically you would define a table, the type of data that's in the table, and then what values you're going to accept in there. But now you could do something like this, like I want someone to have their email address, and I want them, and so here the default value, I don't know, B, so we'll do enter your email. And I'll save that.
Priscilla has this.
Oh, wait.
Because
Then I'll do a multiple choice.
She would hate this because she would have to learn something new and she would say she doesn't have enough time. But because of how the UI is set up now, she would like it a lot better because it flows better and it's a little easier to understand for some people.
And when we get to the HTML, we'll just like oh, I know, I'm seeing TD.
And then I'll have, let's say, a security code.
so in the old way,
So-
the creating an email text box on a form, it didn't have this has.
I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you what it looks like.
Regular expression for email validation.
It already has that built in. The old way had that as well.
Oh, it already had that as well?
Mhm.
Okay.
But you couldn't just lay it out like I just did. It was much more limited as to what you did.
Yeah.
Like you could do it, but you had to basically jump over to HTML code and start laying things out that way. It's a little bit more complicated.
Well, we still didn't get to see what the HTML that actually writes out is.
I'll show you. Man, you people, holy cow. So I'll just start with a big layout.
We developers love those tables.
No, I like tables because they work. Tables work. Actually, I don't love tables. So this is my online form. So if you're watching what I'm doing, I have yet to ever go into any code or anything. I haven't had any kind of stuff, so I come into here. I'll select Alex's form. Okay. And there's the form for Alex. And if I do this, let's just see what it looks like. Tables.
What happened?
He doesn't like the tables.
Oh, it is.
That's not tabular data.
I don't know. But did you see, Alex, that's already built in? So if I do,
So,
it will know that that's not a valid email address because it already has those regular expressions built into it. And you'll probably put your dog in some sort of yellow sweater or something. In 5. So just like that, you can enter a form. So this visual form builder is a pretty cool thing, I think, that will really help a lot of content editors.
I have a question. So let's say we create a site with
I'm listening.
So we designed the template for MSR so that all of their forms have the same look and feel. When they create a form, is it going to fit if the CSS is applied to that, and if their site is responsive, is that tabular or disabled?
So only if you choose to allow that and make the tabular data responsive and consistent style, but we wouldn't recommend that because it's not semantically correct.
So I'm seeing this as this is like something that some clients would want to be able to do on their own, but if it's going to be messed up, because
Certainly. It's a tool for particular clients, yes. And I think if you have the right client that wants to do this, and if their site has been built in a way that they can produce these forms and they can just throw them into the site and the site will pick them up and style them correctly, then I think it's great. It's just a matter of what the capabilities are of the people that you're working with. And I think that's going to be different for each client. Another thing I want to show you real quick. This one's going to get a little bit more technical, but let me jump in here because this is cool, important stuff. So this is top developer features. So those are some of the new UI, as you see. So this is what's called data query. So this gets a little complicated, but this is using the Kentico API to get users. And this is what you used to have to do. You'd have to call get users where you pass where, you'd have to pass an order by, a top with columns. So you'd have like get users, where name equals Brian, order by top one, order by first name descending. This would be a 1, and that could be whatever column you want to do. What this really returns is a data set or a strongly typed collection of enumerables. In this case, it would be user infos. This is really specific to SQL Server because it's really a data set on the back end and how it executes it. And there's some other aspects to it. All of the data that you actually pull is loaded to the application. It's going to go pull all that data, and then if you need to do something with that data, then you're working with it in the browser. If you need to page through it or something, you're working with it within the application. And it's kind of difficult to add new things to it. It's hard to do like group bys or distinct on your data because you don't really have that. That's really something you put in the select area. So that gets more complicated. So Kentico came up with this new way, and it's called data query. And really what's happening behind the scenes is you just make a call like this, and then you pass it these optional parameters. So you would have something like user queries dot where starts with username dot order by full name dot page the 5th page. And what this does is it allows you to specify these when you need to, not specify when you don't. And it's not until you actually do this that you're actually hitting the database to do something. More importantly, something like this. The paging is happening within SQL Server, not within your application, which is a lot faster and it's a lot more efficient. And it's compatible with LINQ, and you can add in several. There's a lot of these different commands of order by, where starts with, page. There's like distinct, dot group by. There's several of them, and you can kind of append them all to they're lazy loaded, which again, it doesn't actually get these from the database until you actually call it. But what this is really doing is they've abstracted the SQL Server specific aspect of this. So what they're doing is they're setting up Kentico so that you could put it in front of a different database that wasn't SQL Server. And this is all still going to process the same way. It's just underlying data that it hits, which is why I said right now it's a .NET application that runs on SQL Server. This frees them from that because now they basically abstracted this data extraction layer to a wrapper, so to speak, or they kind of simplified it down. And so then now this is like an agnostic agnostic call, and it doesn't matter where it goes to, it's always going to be the same API code to go do. That's a pretty big deal.
It is.
I don't necessarily want to work with anything but SQL Server, but that's a big deal.
It can hit like an Oracle database.
Yeah.
There's a particular blog on this that Martin Hetmonic, who is the CTO of Kentico, wrote, and I try to pretend that I know what he's saying in most of his blogs. He's a very, very smart guy. I have a link to it at the end of my presentation. I'll show you about it.
Smart.
Martin's pretty smart.
Everybody says,
So
Brian,
Brian,
you're smart.
Yes.
Brian, you're smart.
What?
What is the execution of the backend?
Let me pull up the blog. I'll just have to show you. He actually has diagrams. I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute.
Probably a choice if it's provider based on the backend.
Yeah, he breaks it all down, and I'll show you. Actually, I'll just do it right now. Let me see.
What if I don't want to dress my dog in a sweater?
Your mom will do it regardless. All right, so this is Martin's blog, and he really breaks this all down. He kind of explains why they needed to make the improvements and what the improvements are and why it's easier. But if you get down into here, he starts explaining the data query concept, and it's an abstraction of the data query for reading data. So you don't have to worry about using this particular SQL commands down to all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But if you get down even more, he starts to break it down into, those are just some examples. He does link. I'm personally not a huge fan of link, but down here, he starts actually showing the hierarchy of how the queries actually happen and how they get executed.
So are there multiple execution modes like there is in AEOs?
You can do it different ways. Is that what you're asking about?
Scalar.
I don't know about that actually. I don't know if there's that. I know you can do it with, there's like the straight link call, but then you can do what's called a fluent link, which is really the example I showed because that's what I'd be more comfortable with. But he actually shows other examples. I don't know if it has that. I don't know if you can do that or not. He gets way down into it. Like I said, he starts breaking it down into here under the data flow and exactly what's happening behind the scenes. I would
be queried on the back end. It looks like.
Which one? Yeah, it actually.
So it's really string based. It's still. You can specify a store proc and execute query, but it's not its native behavior.
Right. That is
so
true.
Really, so you can fire out either inline or.
You still could do inline, I think, if you got that in the right chain, you probably can inject inline into it. Yeah. I wouldn't want to, but
And if it supports execute query, I would imagine it's supports execute scalar.
Martin breaks this all down inside of here, and he actually tells you how you convert your old code, and he tells you some stuff. It's a very long blog. I would recommend, if you're really interested, check it out because it gets crazy in what he starts talking about. What?
This is optional then, right? You're not required to convert all of those.
I don't think you have to. I haven't really. Actually, when I did when I tried to do an example, I don't think you have to, but then again, I don't know. So I'm running out of time, so I want to make sure I finish this by the time Phil gets here. The new version of Kentico actually has test automation support built into it, which is something new. You can run unit tests in which they provide this API for like fake info and fake info provider, which basically populates your test with fake data, so you never actually have to go anywhere to get it. And it allows you to just simulate the content that you're loading into your function, and then it will process it. Then it has what's called an integration test, in which you actually will connect to some external resource, but that will make some change within that database. So you obviously need to do that in a sandbox environment. And then it has this built-in thing for CMS test connection string. It's like a special connection string you have to put in your system. This one I found is really interesting. It's isolated integration test, which it runs against its own DB, but it makes the DB on the fly. You populate it with data, uses it for your test, and then when your test is over, then it deletes it. And then they have NUnit support, which is built-in functionality of TFS, or is that like a methodology, or how would you even refer to NUnit? Is it a...
NUnit is just another testing platform.
It's a platform?
It's a platform like the Fates platform is for .NET.
Okay.
It's an old one. It's one of the first open source.
Okay. They also have this special class of CMS assert for assertion commands, or assertion methods. I think those are on how you compare data within your tests. But all of this basically, you can make, it basically has support for TFS automation, or TFS testing built into it, which means you can develop your tests within Visual Studio and execute them against Kentico using Kentico APIs to load your data.
It's really though based off of unit tests at the core, right? Even the integration tests are still unit test framework based execution against an external source. It's
Right.
not functional testing, it's not test automation, because that's automation of functional tests.
This is really an abstraction from, I kind of pulled some pieces from a blog that a guy I actually don't know, which doesn't happen very often at Kentico, in which he kind of breaks it down and explains where they have the sample test projects and then explains the fake info and providers. And then he does break down the stuff on integration and how it connects to things and some settings you have to make. And he does talk about each type of test and some important information about it and how it actually executes. And then he kind of breaks down on which, when to do each one.
Okay.
And then how I guess it supports MS Test, which is I guess the Visual Studio testing framework. And then he explains a little bit about CMS Assert, which I still don't quite understand. But this blog is also in my presentation as well. So
Okay. I think it's fair to say it's more unit test based.
probably, but then again, I'm not an expert on testing, so I don't know for sure. So there you go. If you want to know more, these blogs. These are the two. What did I do? Okay, how did I do that? Okay. This is like, okay, that's, oh, maybe it's behind, it's just not loaded yet. No, it wasn't there. I had the link to the test automation in here. I'll add that so that it's in there as well. But that's the link to Martin's blog on the data query, which is pretty slick. And then some other stuff there. And if people that don't know me, this is me. I'm a very bad RC pilot. I have broken 2 vehicles.
But you can.
Break your drone already?
Oh, he broke it.
Yeah.
Broke it the second day. Second flight. Okay, so we have a few more minutes, and I don't mind showing you things until the food gets here. What do you want me to?
Your overview slide, because I had a question and I can, or not a question, but something I was going to say about. No, it was what's new for developers? Yeah, there you go.
Do you guys want to see? Let me show you the shopping cart. I'll try to leave this up, but I need to do an install over here real quick so I can show you. The shopping cart thing's pretty slick. Let me do this real quick. So say wizard.
Doing that,
Mm-hmm.
while Mike was thinking about his question, what do you think the process for upgrading is going to look like?
So every time Kentico releases a new version, it's generally about a month later. They try to have a migration utility or an upgrade path defined. I'm not supposed to say much about it, but they're going to most likely have a utility that will actually go through your code and say, oh, I see you're using this API, do this instead. That will help people do that.
What about the data migration piece? Is it a completely different data structure?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm not aware of the data structure being all that different. I will say the project structure is slightly different, in which the main thing is they've abstracted out the library, the lib folder, in which that's where they put all the DLLs. So if you want to put your own stuff in there, you no longer have to throw them into the bin and be part of the project. Now they're in the lib. So you can check in the lib folder in the Visual Studio and not worry about the bin, which always seems to wipe itself out every time you do a rebuild, which causes all kinds of problems.
Is this a web app?
This is a website, and the problem for that is when I made the new module, I found a problem, and I found a problem in the documentation because it wasn't telling me to do the right thing, and I could never actually set up my new module correctly. But when I made it a website, I could. So I was actually trying to do the web app first because that's what I prefer to work in, but I had to do a website for that particular reason. So this will show up here in a second. It's just making a lot of products behind the scenes. I'm trying to think of more e-commerce stuff that they do. You can, there was some of the stuff that we did. Well, they have donations and bundles and stuff. That's all built into it. What are you going to say? Single page, yeah, that's in here. I'll show you that too. So they have a new concept of a single page checkout. Instead of right now, the default Kentico8 is like a 6-step process where you send them through. You can actually throw them all into one page and do everything on one page and submit it just to one without having to do anything. So it's complaining because I have the license, so I gotta stop this one, and I'll start this one. So now, if I come over here, let's see. I should see my e-commerce site, yeah. So they don't have the new e-commerce stuff in the corporate site. They have it in the e-commerce demo site. They had the old way to do e-commerce in the corporate site. So this is the first time hitting it, so it's going to take it a minute to come back to life. But there was something else, like something big. It was something we've done for one of our clients that one of our developers had to spend a lot of time doing. Gift certificates, that's what it is. Gift certificates are built in now, so you can do those on those. I'm almost positive about that. I can double check that actually, but I'm almost positive gift certificates are there. So I'm gonna just add something to my cart here, and then I'll show you this concept. It's gonna go to the standard. Let me pull this up actually. Pages. Let's see. That's gonna be under. Let's see, pages. Okay. It's still adding it to the cart, so while it's doing that. That is under checkout? No, I gotta wait, see what it says. It doesn't like that I'm doing multiple things at once on a site that haven't been hit before. Who ordered the food? Okay, cool.
I guess one of us is,
Okay, cool.
yeah, it is.
So, so this is the checkout page. So in here, come on, load up. You can actually come into the actual checkout and see like the shopping cart. And instead of it being some big control that you have to go into Visual Studio and manipulate if you want to change how something looks, you can come into here. I'm waiting for that to load in the background. So that's what this, let's see, add to cart. No, we don't. That would be good. If you could, please.
Where is it at?
Probably in this closet.
So you can come into here and under the shopping cart content, configure it, and you can make it, basically, it's all template based. So then you can change how this actually looks right from here. So let's see, this is item transformation. So you kind of have to drill into it a little bit, but eventually I'll get into there. Yeah. So this, I hopefully I'm in the right thing. I think I am. So it's been a while. So in here, if I just do, you know, I should see the word sample somewhere. I hope, yeah. So instead of having to do this, we used to have to do this in code. We had to go into Visual Studio and do something like this if we ever needed to manipulate. Now you still would have to if you had to add functionality, but if we just wanted to change the layout or design, it was still a physical code file change. So this is a pretty big deal. Yes.
Putting the buttons in a much more logical place too, like the coupon code, you apply that over here.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it's laid out. But another real cool feature is this right here. It's the one-step checkout, and it's pretty cool. Why do I not see it? So if I go to checkout, this was normally like a 6-step process, in which there's still your concept of a shopping cart, and then you go to checkout from there. But you have to basically put in your name, your address, your credit card information. Now you can actually do it all right from one screen, just like this, all in one shot, which is a pretty big deal, especially if you want to streamline how people are interacting with the site. There you go. Any other questions?
Is there an eval to fill out?
An eval? No, there's not.
Because I really like the socks.
Thank you. This is my second compliment on these socks today. All right. Well, cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop this.
Alright, food's here. First come, first serve on the plates. Anyone else can use napkins?